Hi, it's me. Welcome to yet another Limbus Company ID overview for Season 7. This week's update added the final two House of Spiders IDs in the House of Spiders, the Thumb Apprentice Heathcliff, and the House of Spiders, the Thumb Nursefather Rodion. Both of them are a hybrid of Tremor and Burn, but Rodion also has a good amount of poise, despite not actually counting as a poise ID in the Mirror Dungeon. She's also the first character in a Project Moon game to use a slur. Both of them are absurdly good, especially when together, with Rodion being the clear stronger of the two, but you're pretty much always going to want both anyways. Tremor has become a very powerful archetype, my second favorite in the game as of right now, and Scorch is both their most consistent amplitude as well as the second best overall. Now let's jump into their kits and see just exactly what makes them so good. Also, like, all of their skills are in Italian, so prepare for me to butcher some pronunciations. The House of Spiders, the Thumb Apprentice Heathcliff's kit revolves around two new statuses called the Dual Escalates and Maturing Textbook. The Dual Escalates is an effect that can be inflicted to each enemy up to 3 times per turn, and stacks up to 5, and while it does provide effects for Heathcliff, the status itself doesn't actually do anything on its own. This effect is inflicted after Heathcliff's attack ends against an enemy, and it applies 1 more if Heathcliff's skill clashed. This effect makes him gain SP by the amount on the target at the start of his clash, which is never live on the first turn since he hasn't inflicted any yet. If he kills an enemy that has the Dual Escalates, he gains 1 Maturing Textbook. It can stack up to 3, can gain up to 2 per turn, and increases Heathcliff's base skill damage by up to 25%. It's just generally a nice effect to have, even if it does build up really slowly. Both the Dual Escalates and Maturing Textbook combine to provide the effects of his Fueled passive, providing maximum benefits when the combined values of both are at 5 or more. They make him deal up to 15% more and take up to 15% less damage, and the total stack provides additional effects. At 1, he gains 1 Clash Power, which is the only effect that doesn't provide benefits exclusively to base skills. At 2 and 4 stacks, he gains 1 Base Power for base skills each. His base skills deal 15% more damage at 5 or more stacks, and at 3 or more stacks, his base skills will inflict 1 Severed Tendon on hit. Severed Tendon has a maximum stack of 1 and reduces base power of all skills by 1, making it functionally identical to Power Down, and that's actually quite good even though he can only inflict 1 to each enemy per turn. While Nursefather Rodion is on the field, he gains additional effects based on her Eye of Precognition state. Under normal circumstances, Heathcliff will perform an assist attack after Rodion's first skill using his own skill 1, which is already incredibly good as it is. While Eye of Precognition is overheating, he instead gains 1 assist defense at the start of every turn, and said assist defense can only activate if Rodion is the one who would be hit. Heathcliff's assist defense skill is I Will Protect, a 3-13 rolling Gloom clashable guard that heals 5 SP for Rodion and gives Heathcliff 2 protection. It is admittedly not the most glamorous skill ever, but being able to generate Gloom is pretty valuable, and even if he loses the clash, he doesn't get hit too hard. His support passive applies to 1 ally with the fastest speed, and has a lot of effects. When the ally wins a clash, they inflict 1 burn count once per turn, as well as 1 tremor count if the affected ally is from the thumb. It also inflicts 1 additional burn and tremor count if there is only 1 enemy on the field. It's very clearly designed to work for burn first, since it functions based on Wrath Resonance, but it is activatable in a Tremor team, even if you are most likely going to want him in the team that most values this passive. And it's a really good passive, completely replacing the need for Liu Honglu, provided that you don't field him. Lastly, his Psychi buff for House of Spiders Ryoshu allows her to both inflict 2 Tremor and trigger Tremor Burst on winning a clash. On her own, this just equates to 2 stagger damage twice per turn, since this burst reduces Tremor count, but Heathcliff existing gives her a very clean kill target in a lot of teams, and that by itself is very useful. It also makes her kind of usable in a Tremor team, but again, Heathcliff probably wants to be in that. His defense skill is Measuring Blade Reach, a 5-13 rolling / wrath skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 7-15 based on the target's Burn and Tremor. It's a very low infliction skill whose true utility is the fact that it's an easy access wrath skill to trigger Wrath Resonance with. That said, dealing up to 100% extra damage based on the target's Dual Escalates makes it a surprisingly decent skill for damage too. It's a pretty solid skill to use once enemies have a lot of Dual Escalates. La Spada de Palermo is a 3-11 rolling slash lust skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 3-15 based on the target's burn and tremor. It is one of the simplest skills on any ID released for quite some time, which is because this is his skill that triggers off of assist attack with Rodion. The infliction on it is subpar until you realize that the skill can trigger for free once per turn every turn, basically. Colpi Satani is a 4-16 rolling slash sloth skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 4-22 based on the target's burn and tremor. And it has really good infliction of both burn count and tremor count, especially if he wins a clash against a target with the dual escalades. On top of that high infliction, the tremor burst does not trigger unless he has maturing textbook or the target has dual escalates. This means he doesn't start eating into your tremor count right away, and can actually build it up quite well early on into a fight. This is just generally a fantastic skill because of that, especially compared to the other Thumb IDs who struggle to maintain either status on their own. Il Cacciatore is a 5-17 rolling slash wrath skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-23 based on the target's burn and tremor, and can become all unbreakable if he has maturing textbook or the target has enough dual escalates. It also inflicts a lot of burn and tremor, even more if the target has more dual escalates, which also increases its damage. The final coin can deal up to 75% more damage based on his maturing textbook, applies the Scorch Amplitude to Tremor, and can trigger Tremor Burst up to 3 times, making it incredibly valuable for damage when the target has a lot of burn and tremor. If the target has 5 dual escalates, it becomes Sesia Natura de Servo instead, and it has a little glimmer on the dashboard so you know it will use it ahead of time. It's a 5-17 rolling slash wrath skill with 4 unbreakable coins that can become up to a 5-32 based on the target's burn and tremor, his own maturing textbook, and gains up to 2 attack weight based on his maturing textbook as well. It deals extra damage against a single target, as well as with more attack weight than there are targets. Outside of that, it's like using his other skill 3 at full conditionals without actually needing to reach them, aside from the coin power ones. It is better than that skill just from the attack weight and extra coin, but it also always consumes all dual escalates from the main target and grants him 1 maturing textbook, which is his only other way to gain it aside from his passives. This means he really does need to get kills if you want to increase maturing textbook, and while that isn't always difficult, he will struggle to build it up in any fight that doesn't last longer than a few turns. Still, a fantastic skill overall. If you take his assist defense skill into account, this ID perfectly fuels his own Yesunyata Tedrupam, which is a very powerful ego that doesn't get talked about a lot. Mass SP healing is already great, but inflicting attack power down on top of that makes most enemies a lot less threatening to deal with. The passive also provides a lot of additional survivability for Heathcliff, though it does require him to get staggered, plus it can hit up to 5 targets really easily. Fighting for the same slot, we also have Asymmetrical Inertia, which is great for damage, inflicts a lot of tremor, and can give tremor clockwinding to the self for better speed and tremor infliction. The passive is also basically a guaranteed fragile on every enemy every turn as soon as you trigger a tremor burst, and that activates for the whole team, which makes it even better. Move-in Reg is better for his other status effect in Burn, with its passive increasing his burn infliction by a significant amount. The microchip status it inflicts will help the entirety of a burn team to deal better damage, and the ego itself deals pretty good damage as well. Holiday also helps him to inflict more of both burn and tremor. In the Thumb, he's obviously the best inflictor of both, and it will help to solidify that position for him. Moving on now to the House of Spiders, the Thumb Nursefather Rodion. Her entire kit revolves around Eye of Precognition. She begins every encounter with 30 stacks, and once it hits 0, it immediately converts into Eye of Precognition Overheat, increasing her offense level by 3, but reducing her defense level by 3. It then increases by 10 each turn until it reaches 30, at which point it will convert back. Eye of Precognition does a few things. Firstly, it grants 1 accelerating future for every clash step of her own skills, which lets her deal up to 15% more damage, can increase clash power by up to 2, and increases coin power by 1 at its maximum stack. This makes all of her skills very consistent, making you more likely to win a clash the longer it goes on, then rewarding you with extra damage when you win it. It disappears at the end of the skill that clashed. If she is about to be hit in any way while she has Eye of Precognition, she will attempt to use Precognition to evade it. It's a 3 to 10 Gloom evade that can become up to a 7 to 18 based on her Eye of Precognition stack. It grants a really good amount of poise and can even heal her SP, but costs her a bit of Eye of Precognition in the process. If it successfully evades an enemy attack, she will then use Sissio Natura di Coniglio as an unopposed attack against the attacker. It's a 4 to 12 rolling/lust skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 7 to 15 based on her poise and the target's burn and tremor. It inflicts a good amount of count for both burn and tremor, specifically inflicting 2 tremor count, so that the tremor burst doesn't fully remove enemy tremor in the process. This makes it a very good source of extra damage that will probably trigger a lot, since Precognition triggers even off of enemy cracked coins that would typically hit you even if you won the clash. There's a lot of ways that her own Eye of Precognition stacks can be reduced on her skills, but it also reduces when her evade activates in varying amounts dependent on the result of that clash. That said, you don't need to consciously worry about reducing it, in case that was a worry. But why would I intentionally lose an evade and additional attack? Well, when she enters the overheating state, a couple of things will happen. First off, she reloads to full ammo, which is key to maintaining her poise and buffing her strongest skill. It also replaces a base skill with a copy of Disposal, a 5 to 20 rolling/wrath skill with 5 unbreakable coins that can become up to a 10 to 35 based on the target's burn and tremor if she has ammo, and if the target has game target, which we'll get into in a moment. It deals bonus damage when the target is below half HP, inflicts a ton of burn and tremor, and the final coin spends up to 5 ammo to deal up to 50% more damage and trigger Tremor Burst up to 4 times. It then reloads again if it kills, and if the skill killed an enemy with game target, you get another usage of Disposal next turn as well. The extra Disposal usage can't trigger multiple times in a row, meaning you'll only ever get 2 uses of Disposal per overheat, but nothing is stopping you from holding the second one for as long as you need to. Disposal is a crazy skill, one of the strongest possible skills for single target damage, especially when the target has a lot of burn and tremor. Using the skill on its own is enough of a benefit to overheat to justify losing the evade. If you have Disposal on your dashboard, it inflicts game target to the last unit that Rodion attacked during the previous turn. It increases the damage that Rodion deals to the target by 15% and doesn't ever go away, which is great. Another benefit of Overheat is that it's a way to gain Shin Disgrace. She gains it at the first time she enters Overheat, the first time she becomes staggered, and her first stagger is automatically healed at turn end, or at any point when Thumb Apprentice Heathcliff is dead. This variation of Shin increases min and max speed by 1, makes her inflict 1 more burn and tremor potency and count with her base skills, which is an absolutely insane amount of increase overall, and makes her deal up to 15% more damage based on her poise. Speaking of her poise, it's a little weird that she's not a poise ID, but none of her main base skills actually gain it. Instead, she gains 2 potency and count every time she spends Acceleration Round, her unique ammo that she begins encounters with 10 of, and if you spend more than 1 at once, it gives you 2 potency and count for every round spent. She has no issue maintaining her own poise during an encounter, so it basically functions as a somewhat inconsistent 20% damage boost, since she doesn't actually have any on-crit effects. Having Acceleration Round also triggers the first effect of her Fueled passive, giving her skills for rank 3 plus 1 coin power, and makes them deal 25% more damage. This also applies to Disposal, making it even more ridiculous as a 10 to 40 rolling skill with 25% more damage stacked on top of it. Outside of the buff to her skill 3s, she also deals more damage based on the target's burn, and then even more if the target also has shield. She is a hard DPS unit through and through, and I really mean hard DPS. Her support passive grants 2 offense level up next turn to the fastest ally when they trigger Tremor Burst, as well as 1 haste if they're from the Thumb. It's a decent support passive, but not super important for any specific team. Her Saikai buff to House of Spiders Ryoshu is rather underwhelming, giving 1 coin power to defense skills, and making her deal 10% more damage if the target has shield. Damage is damage, but shield is pretty niche on a lot of enemies, and it won't be worth losing Rodion's damage better for the long run of a fight. Fuck Off is a 3-11 rolling/pride clashable counter that can become up to a 5 to 13 based on the target's burn and tremor. It is her best skill for reducing Eye of Precognition aside from her skill 3, and while its infliction is just okay, it becomes much better once she has Sheen. It is also her only way to gain more ammo aside from entering Overheat or using Disposal, increasing her ammo to 5 at turn end if she has less than 5. It's a really useful skill in teams that want Pride Resonance, and since her poise gain is so good, she works really well in poise teams too. Colpi di Taglio is a 3-11 rolling / Pride skill with 2 coins that can become up to a 4-16 based on her poise and the target's Burn and Tremor. The infliction is very slightly better than that of her counter, and the skill itself is usually better anyways. All of her skills lose an amount of Eye of Precognition based on how many coins are left on the skill. That also increases the damage the skill deals based on how much was reduced. This means her damage is better during clashing, which was already clear by Accelerating Future, but the rest of her skills make it even more clear. I'll Gladly Blast a Hole Through Ya is a 4-16 rolling / sloth skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 5-23 based on her poise and the target's Burn and Tremor. Just in general, her Tremor infliction is better than her Burn infliction. This skill also bursts Tremor, which is important. It's an overall solid skill, but it becomes a different skill if she has no ammo remaining. Cissia Natura de Servo is a 4-16 rolling / sloth skill with 3 coins that can become up to a 6-24 based on the target's Burn and Tremor, and if she is in Overheat state, plus it becomes fully unbreakable in Overheat state. It is a much better skill 2 that also gains a ton of poise and can both trigger amplitude conversion and an additional tremor burst. Consistently being at low ammo is not the easiest due to reloading on entering the Overheat state, but using higher ranked skills will deplete said ammo pretty quickly. Best way to stay at low ammo is to just not use her defense skill at all. You can't control the reload from Overheat or Disposal, so it's best not to worry about them in the first place. But this skill is incredibly good to have available if your goal is high damage. Cissia Natura de Elefante is a 4-16 rolling / wrath skill with 4 coins that can become up to a 5-25 based on her own poise and the target's Burn and Tremor. It does not gain more damage from spending Eye of Precognition, but spends a whole lot more than her other skills do. It inflicts a good amount of Burn and Tremor, triggers Tremor Burst up to 3 times based on how much ammo the skill spends, and converts the Tremor to Scourge. It's a very powerful skill that matches that of Tangle Cleaver from Merceau, but has much better damage potential, and you'll want to use it when you can to decrease her Eye of Precognition very quickly. She actually perfectly fuels a lot of her own ego, chiefly of which being Indicant's Trial. Healing allies on top of inflicting a ton of burn and makes the enemy wrath resistance weaker on top of inflicting bind. The passive makes maintaining burn count on large groups easier to do and helps to keep Rodion's SP topped off. It's her best ego option by quite a bit. She perfectly fuels Pursuance, which is a massive burst of healing for 2 other allies, and can inflict Sloth Fragility to help damage in Tremor teams. On top of that, the passive will provide a bit more healing every time you stagger an enemy. She perfectly fuels the recently released Into the Sunset, which is yet another great healing option, but the passive also increases her potential damage by a mile, and inflicts Wrath and Lust Fragility, which are both very valuable in teams featuring a lot of thumb units. If we factor in Precognition, she perfectly fuels Effervescent Corrosion, which is a massive amount of Tremor count infliction that always lives up to its nickname of Slime Shake. The bind it can inflict is also nice, but she can't utilize the passive outside of ego skills, so you're mostly using this for the Tremor. She perfectly fuels What Is Cast, which while not incredibly helpful for this specific ID, is something you will always have access to at the very least, and it helps to stabilize her SP. Lastly, she just barely doesn't feel it herself, but 4th Match Flame is a great tool to deal a lot of extra wrath damage in a turn with the massive amount of fragility it inflicts. It is also a good source of inflicting burn, and she has so many other options for healing that going for this ego in order to have a more offense-focused option is probably a good idea. The best team for these units is a hybrid Tremor and Burn team that focuses on maximizing damage using Tremor Scorch. For that, bringing the other 2 thumb units will make Scorch incredibly consistent by having 4 different units who can convert to it. That said, they do struggle a bit with maintaining those statuses, specifically Burn, since half of them will stop inflicting it past a certain point. You can swap out Thumb Merceau for Hornet Merceau, and you will have a much better time maintaining the burn half of the equation. You'll lose a bit of tremor, but you'll never really have to worry about the burn again, and the ID has incredibly good damage numbers. Plus, Capote inflicts so much tremor and is so easy to fuel that it'll be like you didn't even lose a tremor unit. In the tremor half of the team, adding units like Regret Faust and Zheng's Office Ishmael will make the payoffs for your tremor units much higher due to their high damage and amount of bursts. They're both fantastic IDs, though you can sub out Zwei Office Ishmael, who is much more readily available to people with accounts that may be missing out on Walpurgisnacht IDs. Heisho Yi Sang, Faint Aroma and Solitude Ryoshu, and Ujat Otis are fantastic units to add for their high damage, but also for their varied sin affinities to help generate some of those needy ego requirements. Sinking adds a bunch of consistency for your team, as well as some extra gloom damage for enemies that don't have SP, and Concussion will make Tremor a more valuable status in general. There's nothing against adding other Tremor types into the mix if you want better damage on big burst turns through Amplitude Entanglement. Contempt All Ryoshu and Night All Gregor are both fantastic units who provide hemorrhage to the mix for lust damage, but you will never have enough bleed for full benefits if you use them with the Scorched team. Uradivi Honglu and his Cavernous Wailing Ego both add reverb to the mix, which is the easiest type to max out the damage of, but Uradivi feels a bit dated at this point. Not to say he's bad, just that his raw damage output doesn't match up to more modern IDs. T-Corp Otis is your best choice if you're looking for better tremor maintaining abilities, since she inflicts a ton of count. Her damage is also incredibly respectable, especially with Time Moratorium boosting it to absurd amounts, so you can't really go wrong with including her either. On the burn side of things, other great options for maintaining a burn stack include Firefist Gregor, who is still the best burn inflictor in the game with very solid damage, and Ardor Blossom Star Faust, who inflicts a ton herself and still has great affinities for the tremor half of the team. She can also bring her own Ardor Blossom Star Ego to inflict embers for even better burn damage as the fight goes on. The best way to make the burn part of the team more valuable is through Dark Flame. Any Otis can inflict this by using the Magic Bullet Ego, but Magic Bullet Otis is obviously the most consistent at applying it overall. Other good burn units to include are Sunk East Don Quixote, Liu Yi Sang, and Lamp Gregor, who all support the team really well by either dealing a lot of damage, or in Yi Sang's case, providing SP acceleration. Blade of the House of Spiders Ryoshu also works as an inclusion anywhere, basically, with her high burn infliction and damage. She also functions really well in a poised team designed around her to deal more damage, and we finally have enough units for her to kill to both gain an extra slot and not lose any other really good units for that team. The goal is to kill Middle Otis, then on turn 2, kill both Thumb Heathcliff and then either Ring Faust or Ring Honglu, depending on who you want for the rest of your team. A slash-focused poised team will want Thumb Rodion in it due to her crazy damage. Other important units to bring include Pinky Sinclair, any of the index IDs but especially Yi Sang, Blade Lineage Merceau, LCD Ishmael, and S-Corp Honglu, all of which have very high damage and provide great support to both Rodion and Ryoshu together. And that's about all I have to say about them. Both are incredibly solid units, especially when together, and have a lot of variance in terms of how exactly you want to build a team around them. Tremor has been my favorite stats to play in recent content, mostly because I like the IDs, but also because they're really fun to build around. You can borrow these IDs from me if you want to try them out before you pull or shard for them, and I would recommend picking up Rodion especially regardless of how you get them. Then get Heathcliff if you enjoy playing with Rodion. Thank you all for watching my video, be sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot, and let me know what you think about these new IDs in the comments. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.